I don't know. Considering that it's the end of the year, should I unleash a wrapped version? Like this whole Spotify wrapped thing has kind of gone overboard because I saw Bolt also has a wrapped. My goodness. It's actually pretty interesting that such a simple concept is such a big thing. But anyways, that's not what I'm supposed to be talking about. I'm actually supposed to be explaining a bunch of interesting shit. So let me get into that by starting things off. So welcome to Breaktime on My Side, your number one breakdown podcast, coming to you from Nairobi, Kenya. The man on the mic is Sir Denver B. The show is Rozo, and this is the final episode before we get back onto Battle of the Sexes and Tweet Street. And I kind of wanted to address something real quick, at least while we are still running on, the episodes that come before we go back to the regular shit. So on episode 15 of Raw Zone, I was referencing this, clip that Oloni had done, and I spoke about how I could explain whatever it is that she explained in 30 seconds or less, and I'd completely finish her shit real quick. Now, her clip was 1:30, and when I actually explained it, I actually went and I checked the time while I was editing, and I also took 1:30, which I felt was very disingenuous of me because I was actually supposed to do it in less time. And yes, I get it. She clipped her video a bunch of times and shortened that shit, so maybe I shouldn't feel so bad. And maybe considering that I sat and I thought about that shit for maybe about 3 or so minutes might not have helped as well. But still, considering that I said that I do it, and considering that I believe that I am a man of my word, and I do believe I can explain multiple concepts from this whole topic of love, sex, and relationships in a very short period of time, I believe that I should have been able to do better. So I figured, let me try and get myself a challenge which can actually show that I probably might not be all that bad. So what I did is I got about 5 different concepts that, people will talk about, people might want to know about, and I feel I can explain particularly well. All of them will take about a minute each. So it's just 60 seconds, and this might end up being a nightmare in editing, but I have my timer ready, and it's cheating for men, open relationships, the throuple, BDSM, and dual mating. Those are slightly more complicated things for a lot of people, and I'm going to try and simplify it and explain it all in 60 seconds per topic. So I can start the counter right now, and I will explain cheating for men in 3, 2, 1. So cheating for men is particularly simple. I feel like this one's even the easiest one for me to sort of try and explain, because when you think about how guys cheat, guys will mostly cheat for about 3, maybe 4 reasons, but it's 2 that are the main ones, because I consider them to be sort of like externally related factors or internally related factors. The other one is revenge cheating, which is mostly done by babes. And the fourth one is when you're cheating to get ahead. So if you're fucking the boss so that you can get a promotion, which I sort of like to leave aside because those ones are particularly common. Now, if you're cheating for externally related reasons, that one's pretty simple. You were walking down the street, you saw a shorty with a nice ass, you decided you wanted to hit it, shorty was fine, shorty was into it, and you managed to hit. Internally related issues is you were having a fight with your babe, but your shorty wasn't offering you something that you wanted from her, and another shorty did, so you ended up falling for her, or you just ended up smashing, and now you've fallen for this babe. So in short, you've cheated both emotionally and physically. Okay, that one's been done in a quick minute. I think I can move on to the next one. Open relationships. That one I don't think is too hard as well, but it might be a little bit complex. So let's see. 3, 2, 1. All right, so open relationships. Now, it's sort of an umbrella term because there's a lot of relationships that can classify as open relationships, but essentially open relationships, or the term open relationships, refers to a relationship or relationships that do not fall under the typical boundaries of the closed relationship or the regular one, where people are supposed to do things as just the two of them. In an open relationship, you have situations where one or both partners can choose to go and sleep with other people, but, keep the relationship alive because they believe that it's more than just that. And, there's others where one partner is allowed, or, they can do certain other things with other people, but, they still kind of keep the relationship alive. And, they get to sort of stay together. Now, there's half open, half closed relationships, and there's the idea of the throuple, which I will get to, but I think that one's a little bit more complicated. But either way, open relationships do not obey the regular boundaries, but they do require more trust and love. There. Whew. Okay, that one was a little bit interesting because I sort of got confused somewhere. But I feel like I can take on the other one. Now, the interesting thing is all the others, I guess, besides the last one, are concepts that I haven't mentioned before, like on their own particular episodes, because it's the throuple, which I've wanted to talk about, BDSM and dual mating. Whew, this one's gonna be interesting. So I'm gonna get onto the throuple in 3, 2, 1. All right, so I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you I understand everything about the throuple, but in my simplest understanding, it's almost like when a threesome becomes a relationship, because essentially it's 3 people that are all dating one another. Now, just as most people who have some proper understanding of threesomes would know, threesomes sort of have some sort of a power triangle. So there's one person in the middle that'll get all of the attention, and the other 2 will sort of kind of converge towards the both of them. The difference is in a throuple, you find that it's 2 people that are dating that choose to decide to pick up another person as their partner. Now, of course, the threesomes can ensue, and in a lot of those cases, one of the partners is bisexual, if not both, whether it's both women or both men. But all in all, ideally, a throuple is 3 people as a couple having threesomes and so on, but ultimately being together, which is some sort of an open relationship. And done. Whew. Okay, that one required quite a bit of thinking, and I feel like that one might have involved me pulling some shit out of my ass. Which is why BDSM is going to be harder, because I may not have to pull out a lot of shit from my ass, but at the same time, there's so much that has to be said about it, and yet I only have a minute. But I guess as far as time goes, we can show that a minute is enough. So 3, 2, 1. All right, so BDSM is sort of like an umbrella term because it relates to a lot of different practices, because it's not like a position or anything. It's almost like a sexual lifestyle or a sexual practice or a combination of practices of sorts, because ideally BDSM in full is bondage, discipline, and sadomasochism, of which you'll find that the umbrella term relates to the act of using ropes in sex, using whips in sex. Ideally, essentially, you kind of have to think about tying, blindfolding, a bit of whipping, but the most essential bits in BDSM is there's a dom and there's a sub. The dom, of course, is going to dominate, the sub is going to be submissive. And it'll relate to different things. Sometimes there's pain involved, sometimes it's just tying up. But all in all, it's supposed to be fun, purely consensual, and there is a lot of use of the safe word, because if there is no safety, sometimes lives could be lost. Done. Okay, definitely a lot more thinking, a lot more to be said. I'm glad I managed to shorten that. And I guess we're left with one more, which is dual mating. This one is something that I guess not that many people have heard. Not unless if you're into science and shit and evolutionary psychology and shit. So I'm going to try and explain this one because it's a bit of a new concept, and I'm going to try and simplify shit because it's actually a lot simpler than you think. So in 3, 2, 1. All right, so dual mating is actually a mating strategy, if I can call it that, because it can relate to sex, it can relate to dating, but essentially it's referred to as a mating strategy. Now, it's mostly done by women. It's actually considered a feminine dating strategy, even though some guys will employ it, because it mostly works to a babe's benefit. Essentially, what dual mating is as you're dating one person, when you're pretty much preparing to get done with a relationship, you're already with someone else, or you're already forming some form of a relationship with someone else, which is why babes will mostly do it, because they tend to have more mate value when they're in a relationship versus guys who might actually have more mate value when they're not in a relationship but pulling more babes, because for us it's the sex, for babes it's mostly the relationship. But all in all, dual mating is not something that should be practiced by a lot of people, but I guess it is done by quite a number of babes, and that is dual mating. Wow. Whew. Okay, yeah. I'm glad I actually managed to pull that one off. I didn't think I would, nearly missed it, but I'm glad I managed to pull that one off. All in all, I feel like this one was a little bit more fun for me. I don't know how you took it, but I actually did kind of like this entire thing. Just trying to explain concept fairly quickly, because I feel like if you do know something really well, you should be able to explain it particularly easily. and you should make it as simple as possible. And the thing that I'm sort of fighting against, which was sort of more or less the same thing that the likes of Oloni and a lot of other people that talk about relationships do, is they sort of overcomplicate things and they use very complex words, which isn't entirely supposed to be the case. If it's something that you know pretty well, you should be able to define it in simple terms. That's just how I've always kind of looked at it, because at that point, that's when you can say you've mastered it, because it's easy enough for you that you feel like you can explain it to a nursery school child. But all in all, that's been it. That's been Raw Zone for this entire period. Battle of the Sexes and Tweet Street will be returning, although things might actually be pretty different next year, because I am sort of looking at the trajectory of the podcast and I am looking at making a couple of changes here and there. So we'll see. But I do intend on making a couple of changes. Some might be a lot more drastic than others, but if you stick around, you should be able to see all of them. But all in all, thank you so much for listening all the way through to the end. If you have managed to listen to this episode all the way till the end, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And I know I forgot to say Merry Christmas, but I will not forget to say Happy New Year or Happy New Year's Eve, depending on when you get to listen to this. I wish you all the best of 2023. May you have a great year and may you continue to push to make it as great of a year as possible for you. Thank you so much for listening all the way through 2022. If you haven't, it's not too late. Thank you so much for all the support. Please continue sharing, continue giving that feedback. Thank you so much for being listeners of this podcast, and I will catch you guys on the next break.